Thousands of people have taken part in anti-racism protests across the UK. This comes after days of far-right rioting, fueled by outrage over the stabbing death of 3 children and subsequent disinformation that falsely named an asylum seeker as the perpetrator. Now, these riots saw mosques and hotels housing asylum seekers attacked, leaving minority communities on edge. DW's Rosie Birchard has this report from Liverpool.
They say they're here to keep racists out. Hundreds showed up at this refugee support centre in Liverpool when they learned it might be targeted by more far-right riots after a week of unrest in the UK and attacks on similar facilities.
I think the last government's got a lot to answer for in terms of the policies that have undermined other services and therefore made British people angry. But the people moaning that they can't get a national health appointment, if all the non-white national health doctors and nurses went, they'd be in an even worse state.
The demonstrators say they want to show the world that Britain is a welcoming melting pot.
Now, we're here today to get communities together, and there's lots of people here today who I've never seen before.
But many British Muslims are living in fear.
I can't lie to you, I'm terrified to be here. I'm extremely paranoid and extremely anxious, but I won't let them think that they've defeated us or, made us feel like we can't, exercise our day-to-day right of just being alive and walking around on our streets.
Those are rights the government says it's determined to protect.
Hundreds of people have been arrested over the past few days across the country, and jail sentences have already been handed down. Authorities hope the heavy police presence will make sure that protests remain peaceful and that there are no more riots.
But the damage has already been done. This local library was looted over the weekend. And this mosque, the oldest in the UK, now keeps its doors locked except at prayer times. The riots began after false claims spread online that the perpetrator of a deadly mass stabbing was a Muslim asylum seeker. After racist attacks ensued, community leaders have now come out with a nationwide call for Muslims not to retaliate.
If you fight fire with fire, and you fight criminality with criminality, and violence with violence, how does that make you any better? You're the same, if not worse, because you should be more intelligent. You claim to be a Muslim and you have these beautiful teachings, and you're just going to throw them all to one side and just bring shame to your name, the reputation of your community. This is the message.
The British government has promised to keep cracking down on anyone whipping up unrest as the country tries to cool tensions and find a way forward.
And our correspondent, Rosie Birchard, joins us now live from Liverpool. Rosie, thank you so much for your reporting there. These riots, we've seen them across the UK for days on end now. Can you give us an update on the situation? Have things now calmed down?
It is indeed a much calmer morning after a much calmer night across the UK. Instead of those scenes of violent, racist riots targeting the likes of hotels housing asylum seekers and even businesses that rioters suspected were linked to just general people of colour across the UK, and particularly British Muslims being targeted. Instead, what I witnessed at this protest was really a peaceful demonstration of people coming out and saying those riots are not in our name. We want this city and this country to still be seen as welcoming. That is surely some reassurance and some relief, particularly for those feeling most targeted by these days of unrest, but it does not solve the problem, and certainly the serious divisions that have come to the fore here. Just before these protests, I was at a mosque with a lot of the British Muslims here in Liverpool. They said the city just feels still like a tinderbox. They remain on edge.
So with that in mind, how reassuring do you think these solidarity protests really feel? And can you give us a sense of the scale, how they compare to the riots that we've been seeing?
Well, one of the chants you've been hearing at some of these solidarity protests, these anti-racist demonstrations, is there are many, many more of us than you. And that did really ring true across the UK last night. The far right were simply far outnumbered by anti-racist demonstrators. But it doesn't change the situation on the ground. I mean, some really distressing stories I'm hearing in Liverpool, for example, kids of colour feeling too scared to show up to summer holiday vacation clubs, and particularly Muslim women here really living in fear. We know a lot of these riots have targeted not only migrants but also British Asian communities, people who were born in the UK, whose parents were born in the UK. Some of the most distressing testimony I've heard is, for example, one British Asian man in his 60s who was born in Sunderland, whose kids and whose grandkids were born here in the UK as well, who found himself locked inside his mosque over the weekend as police tried to keep rioters at bay outside. What he said to me is, in his childhood, he was used to rampant racism. He hoped his kids would not have to see that, and he's worried that now, in fact, that is exactly what has come to pass here in the UK. So still a lot of division still to heal.
And Rosie, as you've pointed out, there is truly a massive police presence there to deal with all this. How has the new Labour government been handling this challenge?
They have vowed to absolutely crack down on anyone trying to stir up unrest or incite hatred here. There have been hundreds of arrests. They've put extra capacity in place for court for quick processing. And here in Liverpool, already some jail sentences were handed down. There are, however, still a lot of questions for the UK government to answer, not only, for example, about how they're going to make sure that communities feel safe. They have, for example, deployed extra staff to be able to keep watch over mosques, but also for the likes of how they're going to deal with online disinformation and really this storm that was whipped up here. I mean, one imam I spoke to at a mosque said, yes, in this case, it was clear disinformation that was spread, false claims attributing this deadly attack of a week or two ago against children to a Muslim asylum seeker. But he said, what if it was a Muslim that had committed the attack? Would that justify showing up and attacking mosques, attacking hotels housing asylum seekers? So still, I think, as I said, I think there's really just a sense here that there's been a huge swelling of divisions and lots still to heal here before people can feel like they can go back to normal with their lives.
Rosie, thank you so much for your work there. That is DW's correspondent Rosie Birchard reporting from Liverpool.